Okay, guys, so I'm putting together a little presentation so that we can talk about how we gain and lose either weight, fat, muscle, whatever it may be. And I think I need to move this around so you guys can actually see, but we'll figure that out. So, when we're talking about either fat loss or muscle gain, it's going to come down to the same equation. And that's always going to come down to your TDEE, which is your total daily energy expenditure. I'm going to have a little bit more on that on the next slide. But I just want to say a few important things is that if you're trying to lose fat, there's really only one way you can do it. The only way you can do it is through a deficit from your total daily energy expenditure. And then from that, there's two different ways you can do that. You can either increase your total daily energy expenditure so that you do have a deficit and that number stays the same, or you can keep your total daily energy expenditure the same and then eat a deficit. As far as muscle gain goes, it's the inverse of it. We have to eat a surplus from our total daily energy expenditure if we want to gain muscle. So just kind of keep that in mind as we talk about a few of these different things. So what we were just talking about before is your total daily energy expenditure, which is a fancy way of saying your metabolism. Now, your metabolism is made up of these components right here. Primarily, your metabolism is made up of your basal metabolic rate, which is 60% of your total metabolism. Now, your BMR is sometimes used interchangeably with RMR. They are slightly different numbers, but for all intents and purposes, they can really be quite similar for your needs. Your BMR would be like if you're in a coma, that's how many calories you still need. But your resting metabolic rate would be like if you're just like laying down watching TV all day and not doing anything. So they're slightly different, but like your resting metabolic rate, it's like you have more like brain function and stuff going on. And BMR is like coma level, like asleep level. So when we are getting testing done, we're usually testing resting metabolic rate, not basal metabolic rate, unless you're going into like a sleep lab and doing a really intensive sleep test. I feel like I'm talking with my hands a lot. Sorry, guys. So that one's super important. And that's essentially your organ function. We'll break each one of these down here a little bit more in a second. Now, NEAT is your non-exercise activity thermogenesis. This is all the calories that you burn from your daily movement. So like talking with my hands, I just burned calories doing that. And we're going to go into depth on all of these here in just a second. And then the thermic effect of food is how many calories it takes to burn the food you're eating. So I always like to use the example that like celery is a negative calorie, and I'll tell you why when we get to that slide. And then the last one is your exercise activity. So let's see, it's the 1, 2, 3, 4. These 4 different things make up your total metabolism. So when we're talking about losing weight or gaining weight, it always, for weight gain, it's going to be a surplus from this number. So if this number is your total daily energy expenditure, to gain weight, muscle, or otherwise, you need to have a surplus from your total daily energy expenditure. To lose weight, you need to have a deficit from your total daily energy expenditure. These are the only 2 numbers that we can work with. There is nothing else to this science. Now, I always caveat that with saying it's nutritional science, not nutrition math. So we do want to make sure that we're also paying attention to different chemical things that can change. For example, with the thermic effect of food, if you are insulin resistant, that's going to decrease the thermic effect of food, therefore decreasing your overall metabolism. So that's why I say it's nutrition science, not nutrition math. But at the end of the day, it's still a black and white formula for losing or gaining. So the only way to lose or gain is a deficit or a surplus from the total daily energy expenditure. But the other thing you can do too is you can increase or decrease your metabolism. That is not a stagnant number. So if I'm trying to lose fat, this is my total daily energy expenditure. This is how much I'm consuming. I can either try to consume less or I can try to increase my metabolism. Either way creates the same deficit and you will achieve your goals. Same thing with muscle gain, which is actually, I don't recommend this for that. For muscle gain, you always want to have a deficit. You don't want to try and slow down your metabolism for muscle gain because that works the opposite of optimization. But if some people have like crazy high metabolisms, yeah, there's things you can do to slow it down, but I don't recommend that. So basal metabolic rate, like we said earlier, sometimes used interchangeably with RMR. You are probably going to take an RMR test if you go to somewhere like DexaBody and you get it actually tested. But like I said, we're going to use this pretty interchangeably. So your body is always burning calories. And you really do want to keep that in mind when you're dieting, if you're trying to lose fat, because what I see a lot of people do, especially women do this, is they just keep trying to go lower and lower and lower on their calories. And there is just like, because they're so focused on that deficit, because they get it. It's like you do have to have a deficit, but there is absolutely a point of diminishing returns. Because when you think about these numbers right here that I have highlighted, I mean, 20% of your metabolism just comes from your skeletal muscle, 19% from your liver, 17% from your brain, 10% from your digestive system. Now, again, these are averages, so you may be more or less than these averages, but let's put that into perspective. So if your liver's 19% of your basal metabolic rate, the average liver burns about like 500 calories a day to function. So if you're only eating 1,000 calories a day, you're not really giving yourself enough calories to function. And what that's going to do over time, if your total daily energy expenditures here, but you're eating all the way down here for extended periods of time, your metabolism's going to slow down because your body does not want to die. Your body's trying to keep you alive. And if you're not eating enough to just maintain this basic function of your kidneys and your heart and your digestive system and your brain, your body will slow down the function of those organs to help you survive. So to help you prevent that from happening, things that we can do to improve our metabolism and our basal metabolic rate is we want to make sure that we're taking care of our organs through stress management. That is huge. I'm going to have a whole other thing on that. We want to make sure we're staying hydrated, not abusing caffeine. We want to make sure that we're eating enough calories, and just kind of a lot of other common knowledge health practices, like eating like a high fiber diet, because fiber is going to help keep your organs healthy and your digestive system healthy. Doing cardiovascular exercise helps keep your heart healthy. Not abusing alcohol helps keep your liver healthy. We want all of these organs to be healthy so that we can optimize our metabolism and therefore optimize ourselves as the organism as a whole. Got it? Now, this one's pretty fun because I'm Italian. I talk with my hands. I think this one has actually always been my superpower because I am kind of like a fidgety person. And so I know that I'm getting a lot out of meat in my daily life. Now, the typical Western lifestyle is we wake up, we walk to the bathroom, we walk to the kitchen, we get to our car, drive to work, sit down, work 8 hours, get in the car, drive home, watch TV. That's a lot of sitting. And I understand that most of us have a job or a lifestyle that's just not conducive to being active. And that's just the unfortunate truth of like the world and society as a whole that we live in. And we can't change that. I like to talk about, controlling what you can change. If you have a job where you're sitting, you can't control or change that. But what you can do is you can do something like getting a sit stand desk. You can try sitting on like one of those yoga balls. You can get one of those walking pads that goes underneath your desk where you can walk and type. And you can go at a really slow pace where you're just kind of strolling and you don't really notice that you're kind of walking. You can even get those under the desk, like little pedal bikes that really help. And just making sure that you're just not sitting for more than an hour at a time. You can try setting your timer, getting up, refilling your water, walk around. We just want to try and keep your overall activity levels higher. If you can bike to work, that's great. If you can't, maybe you just drive part way and then bike the rest of the way. There's so many different things you can do to just work in more neat into your lifestyle. Chores, taking the stairs instead of the escalator. Oh, Southwest Terminal is so far away. I hate going to the B gates. The B gates are the best at the airport. For those of you out of state clients, well, I don't know what state I will be living in by the time you watch this, but I did grow up in Utah, and the B terminals is like a 15-minute walk, and everybody complains about it, but I think it's a awesome thing and it's a bonus, and we all need more activity. So B terminal gates are great because they get you moving and walking. So this one's kind of a non-brainer, but just try to be more movement conscious throughout the entire day. This one's kind of fun and sciencey. So the thermic effect of food is basically saying how many calories your body's burning from the process of digestion. So earlier I mentioned celery being a negative calorie because you burn more calories from the celery than you get from actually eating it. That's true. Other foods that are going to have a really high thermic effect is going to be lean proteins and fibrous vegetables. So those are going to be great for you to add into your diet. A high protein, high fiber diet's always good for everybody, especially if you're trying to lose weight or even gaining weight. It's really important to have a high protein diet if you're trying to gain weight. But this is really also important to consider for the inverse. If you are trying to optimize your metabolism and you've been like your metabolism's been really sluggish for a long time, eating like a really high fat, high processed carb diet's not going to help you. So we want to switch to more whole foods whenever we can. The joke is kind of like if it had a mother or grew from the ground, it's probably good. I like to think about an apple is better than applesauce. Applesauce is better than apple juice. Apple juice is better than apple flavored drink. So you always want to be as close to the source as you can. And I will also caveat this that we want to have moderation in everything, including moderation. And sometimes it's okay to have apple pie too. This one's going to be really quick because, that's a lot of why you guys are here. We know we need to exercise. We're working on it. Excuse me. And it's something that we are all actively working on. But the big thing is that you just want to find something that you enjoy doing and that works. Because if you don't enjoy it, you're not going to stick with it. And if it doesn't work, why are you wasting your time? And that's really all I'm going to say about that. If you guys are having issues with your exercises, please talk to me and we can work something out that you actually like. So this one here is really important to understand because the scale can change. Sometimes the scale goes up and down and it has nothing to do with whether you've gained fat or muscle. In fact, there is about 3,500 calories in 1 pound of fat as well as 1 pound of muscle. So when we're going back to that metaphor earlier where we're talking about those deficits, we have our energy expenditure and our consumption. For me to gain 1 pound of fat, I need to be in a 3,500 calorie 3,500 calorie surplus to gain a pound of fat. So if you weigh yourself on Monday and then you weigh yourself again on Tuesday and you're up by 3 pounds, you did not eat. There's no possible way you had 7,000 calorie surplus. That would be like the average person who eats 2,000 calories a day and then 7,000 on top of that. It's like, okay, you did not eat 10,000 calories in a day and then gain that weight. Also, the body doesn't just process calories like that. Like there's a lot of chemical reactions when you're getting that huge surplus of calories. Your body's just like, we can't even process all of this. So keep in mind, it's not as easy to gain or lose fat and muscle as we think. The body actually really does want to stay in homeostasis. So that's why I prefer for you to look at trend lines over the scale. So what the scale's doing over a month-long period or several month-long period. The shortest scale, I guess I could say, that I would have you look at for your weight on the scale would be 1 week. I personally think it's best for you to get on the scale every day. And then we look at the averages of those data points to figure out an accurate picture of what your weight's doing. And then we can just watch that kind of like change over the time of a month, 3 months, 6 months, etc. Now, if you do fluctuate a lot daily, it's going up and down quite a bit, more than likely that's probably water. So salt, carbohydrates, those can really affect our water weight. In fact, carbohydrates they're like what we call like hydrophilic. They attract water. So if you're eating carbs and so the carbohydrates go straight into the muscle cells as muscle glycogen or blood glucose, and it attaches to that water molecule, and that's going to make you retain a lot of extra weight. But sometimes that's a good thing because we also do want that water and those carbs in the muscle cells, and if they're staying in there, that's going to help you gain a good amount of like size. That's a kind of a water manipulation trick that bodybuilders will use, and that's really good for you. Salt can make you retain water really kind of anywhere. Like if you're getting really puffy ankles or fingers or hips, it's like you can really see when you're retaining water. And that's not fat gain. That's just water retention. That's probably you utilizing some bad habits that made that happen. Lastly is undigested food can change your weight on the scale. So that's why I always recommend weighing yourself first thing in the morning, after you've gone to the bathroom, before you've had anything to eat or drink, and do it in the nude so that it's the same consistent weight every time. If you have things like a wig or dentures or anything, don't put those on for your measurement. Just your raw body is what we want to be measuring. So this is talking about what those numbers on the scale are telling us. So weight is fantastic. It's super easy. And that's why like health insurance and the military and a lot of different systems use weight as a metric to aim for. And that's kind of similar with BMI. BMI is so easy because it's just your height and your weight. But I also hate BMI because it does not tell you how much fat's actually on your body. And I know plenty of people who are lean with six-pack abs who are considered obese by the BMI scale because their weight is high because they have a lot of muscle, but they don't have fat. So it's silly. I hate the BMI. Also, if you have sarcopenia and you have a very low muscle density, it's going to say that you're healthier than you actually are. So it's just not accurate for anybody. So body fat percentage is one that I actually prefer for you to look at. And this is just simply going to tell you where your fat is relative to your body weight. Think of your weight on a pie chart. So skeletal muscle percentage, body fat percentage, that's what that's telling you. And those can also be skewed a little bit. So keep in mind, if my weight goes down, my skeletal muscle and my body fat percentage might stay the same if I lost equal proportions of muscle and fat. If my weight goes up, same thing. My skeletal muscle and my body fat percentage might stay the same if I gained equal fat and muscle. So what we want to see over time is if you're trying to lose fat, we want to eventually see the scale go down a little bit, and we want to see body fat percentage go down a lot. But sometimes what we see is, especially if you have low muscle density or sarcopenia, you're going to see the scale stay the same as skeletal muscle goes up and body fat goes down. And that's the best case scenario. And it freaks people out if they are like obsessed with the number on the scale. So we really want to just, like I tell everybody, get a smart scale because we want to have that accurate information so that we can really truly see a picture of what's going on in our bodies. Body water, kind of the same picture. If you've been dehydrated for most of your life, you might think that you're gaining weight because the scale's going up, when in reality, it's just your muscles that are getting more hydrated, and that is a good thing. We want that. So weight, I think, is a really wonderful, simple way to track your progress. But if you get freaked out by the scale, it can be a negative thing to look at, especially if you just have that weird number in your head where it's like, I gotta weigh 30 pounds. I need to be 30 pounds total. It's like, obviously nobody's going to weigh that unless you're a baby. So don't get freaked out by muscle increasing, water increasing, as long as your fat is going down. Then we also have visceral fat. Visceral fat's an important one to pay attention to because that one, as it increases, is a major indicator of cardiac events later in life. So the visceral fat is the hard fat that's behind the muscles that wraps around your organs. So have you ever seen like old guys with that really firm man belly? that's a lot of visceral fat. And a lot of that is alcohol, honestly. So we want to make sure that we're not over consuming alcohol. The the older rule of thumb was women could safely have 1 drink per day, men could have 2 drinks per day. And this is like a low alcohol content like beer or wine. We're not talking like gin and tonics. And you can't save them up for the weekend. But now what we're kind of starting to see is that it's more realistically, we're looking at it's like probably like 2 drinks a week for men and women, like max. So alcohol just really isn't very conducive to health goals, both weight loss or muscle gain or athletic performance goals. But I also understand that it's a very big social thing for a lot of people. So we do really want to make sure that we're finding the balance that works for us. Um, Making sure that alcohol isn't something that you're abusing, that you're having multiple nights throughout the week to unwind and relax at the end of the day, and that maybe it is just a weekend treat for you. Last couple things on here is muscle mass and bone mass. So some scales will include total muscle mass, which includes your like smooth muscle tissue and your cardiac tissue. And then we also want to have a high bone density. That's very important for preventing things like osteoporosis, helps improve longevity, and protects you against falls as you age. Now, most of us, we're not like at the, oh no, I'm going to fall age, because most of my clients are internet savvy people who are not 70 plus years old, but that is something that's going to be a concern one day. And the more we can start protecting our bones now, the happier and healthier you will be later in life. And that was really kind of it for this video today, guys. I hope you enjoyed it.